In this video I want to show you how you can play some heavy industrial metal inspired beats with your electronic drum pad, which is actually super fun because there's a way of combining the kick drum sound with a bass sound or a riff type sound. So you can actually play some small riffs while also playing a whole beat, and the whole thing kind of sounds like this. I'm going to use the 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝗀𝘀 as you could see, but you can transfer those techniques also to any other electronic drum pad and also to any other synthesizer with which you would create those sounds. And before we start, let me quickly say hi. My name is 𝗕𝗫𝗀𝘀 and on my channel you can find videos about electronic drum pads, for example, and also about making sounds. So in case you enjoy this video, you can already keep in mind that there's more to be found on my channel. And you could see that the sound is divided into two parts. So my left hand plays those kick/riff/bass sounds on those three pads. Actually, there's a fourth one I could use, and if you have like some larger pad, you could even use more pitches, but for me 3 were fine. And my right hand plays the cymbal and snare sound with those two pads. And that's also what I would like to start with, because this part is kind of simple, because for those two pads you basically pick a snare and a cymbal sound that you like. Really doesn't matter what it is, you can just trust your taste here. And I just used some 𝗕drum sounds for those ones and just drained them into reverb, because you can see already that for the reverb I have the P3 mode on setting 4, so it's some rather large plate that adds some dirt and characters to the sound, to this industrial sound that I really like. And also the cymbal sound has 1 repetition, so it's being sent into 1 delay, and here you can see that the feedback is very short, so we only hear 1 repetition. And we can check the tempo because it's 144, and that's the tempo of the beat. I could just change the tempo here and then I would have to play the beat also in another tempo. And why did I do this? Because all the time I play the snare I want the cymbal to continue, because there's always this additional hit. The only thing that you also hear is that I play the cymbal actually twice, like some 8th notes, so there's always a moment where I both play the cymbal live and have the delay. But I kind of like this also because through that there's some variation in the cymbal sound, almost like some little phasing effect, because depending on how tightly you play, you always get some slightly different tone. So I somehow enjoyed it, because especially for those industrial sounds, a little bit of kind of modulation, phasing every here and there is kind of cool, so I just kept it. And so all I do with my right hand is basically this. So this part is kind of simple to set up. For the other part you have to do a little bit of sound design, but also it's not too crazy. And again, I show you how I did it on the 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝗀𝘀, but the settings I used here you can basically find on any synthesizer or on any DAW. So don't hesitate to just try it with whatever you have. The first thing I did is picking a square wave, and on the 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝘀𝘀 you can find it under the wave section, and it's the A4 setting. And also it has a second oscillator, so on your synth you can also just add a second oscillator that is 1 octave higher, because that's what the 75 stands for here on the 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝘀𝘀. Because if it would be at the kind of neutral setting, I would just have 1 oscillator. It's also actually a nice sound. It's more electronic, it's a little tighter, a little, yeah, I wouldn't say cleaner, but maybe this would be a better sound for some hip-hop kind of thing. But if you add the second oscillator, you get a broader frequency range, also more mid-range, what more equals this kind of industrial, distorted guitar type sound. And also very important is already that I drove it a lot, so the drive is basically on 50, so you could also do the same with any type of distortion or saturation plugin. And here it basically changes the volume a lot also. Also sounds kind of cool neutral, but this sound just needs some drive, so that's also a very crucial part. Next important step for getting the kick character is to add some pitch envelope, because on the 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝘀𝘀 you can do it under bend, and otherwise on any synth you can also add 1 pitch envelope. And if this would be off, I would just have this type of sound which doesn't have the kick qualities anymore. So that's why this pitch envelope is so important, and you have to figure out a good decay that is not too long, because if the decay is too long, you get those sounds, and so it loses a bit the punch, and if it's too short, you barely hear it. So I figured out that here it's some kind of cool setting for it. Then for the decay, I actually picked some dynamic setting, because on the 𝗕𝗀𝘀𝗀𝘀 you have this mode that you can basically have a decay for louder notes and a decay for softer notes. So that's why you see 35 and 32. And that means I played loud all the time, but in case I would play some longer piece and make maybe some small performance out of it, I always like to have this option to play softer and have less of the sound, because this way less of the whole filter gets triggered the softer I play. Because here you see I can actually play really gently and get loud. So we could almost make a small composition just with those 3 pads, so you could also copy it to more pads with other pitches and just play dynamically and kind of evolve it naturally, which is super fun. And you wouldn't even need the cymbal and the snare, but this is our beat, so we will stick to this example. And then I also applied quite some filter envelope with a high amount that brings the filter down to some lower part, because if it would be open all the time, I have this kind of gnarling sound in the end, so it sounds a bit messy, so I want to shape the sound a bit further with some filter envelope. And also, if there wouldn't be some filter envelope applied, then we have this sound, which is actually also super cool. And you see, actually now I like this as much as the other sounds, so with the 𝗕𝗀𝘀𝘀𝗀𝘀 you always end up with some kind of cool sounds, or also if you do it with another synth, I guess. And nevertheless, the more you add the filter envelope, the more of this whole mid-range distorted guitar body you get. But you could also, if you just play with one hand, or assign this to a MIDI controller just in live. Do those things, and also you can hear now pretty well, especially if I take off the filter envelope, that I've sent it into the reverb. And it's the same reverb we used for the snare and the cymbal sound, because here we can only use one reverb, which is sometimes a very great limitation. And those plate reverbs, especially for industrial sounds, can sound really cool. And yeah, I also like, in this example, if the sounds are short and you just hear this reverb tail, this metallic reverb tail, it's super cool. So yeah, so much sound to choose from. By the way, if you're generally interested in making your music rhythmically more exciting, be known that I have a full class about this subject on my Skillshare profile. With the link down below in the description, you can register 1 month for free, and this class really gives you a lot of ideas how you can approach rhythm and your music, and just make sure that you find exciting ideas over and over again. And there's also a class actually about learning drums specifically with the 𝗕𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀, so you're just warmly invited to drop by there. And those are the most important settings. I should add that there's also a little bit of noise applied. Almost don't hear it. I think it's more some psychological thing that I wanted to have the sound a little brighter without noticing it, but this, I don't know, is really not the most important thing. And on the 𝗕𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀, it's also cool to add a little bit of the click to also enhance, like with the pitch envelope, the kind of kick character. And again, I don't think we will hear it much. Actually, you really have to crank it up in order to hear it, but that's great because it's not supposed to be too audible. It's more a thing that helps the sound cut through on different devices, especially non-optimal devices like phone speakers. And so it's also a good idea to stay conservative with this one and just add a little bit along the way. Also, there's no EQ applied, so now we can look at some playing techniques, because as you could see, you have to establish first your right hand and make it tightly, especially with the delay. And I mean, if it's too complicated, you can also not use the delay for the cymbal and just have the snare without the cymbal. I think it's not the worst thing that can happen, but I like the kind of continuous move of the cymbal here. And once you have that, just try to play with your left hand, maybe in quarter notes, because your right hand plays 8 notes. It would be like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and because we're in a kind of slow tempo. Although we could also feel it in halftime, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the two things you can feel it. And then try adding, let's go back to the 4/4 in the slower tempo. Just in quarter notes, play the left hand on those different pads to get a kind of basic balance. And start with the right hand again. Because that's actually more difficult than it looks like already. And once you're comfortable with that, just do your left hand in the double tempo. And once you're also comfortable with that, you can try playing some syncopations, which are notes in between the kind of main counts of your right hand. And that's already trickier. And I want to show you some first rhythm you can try it with, because it includes both on and off the beat notes. And just the riff itself would look like this, and I'm going to stay on one pad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 would be like this. And so together with the right hand, and if it's too difficult for you to kind of only listen to the delay of the cymbal because it's kind of advanced already, don't hesitate to just use a click track. So put on a metronome, put on some click in your DAW, whatever you have, because this also really helps to kind of get more stable in this feel. And once you're comfortable with that, you can also try doing this on different pads. And once you're comfortable with that, there's another thing that I really enjoy doing, which is doing two very fast strokes with the left hand right after each other. So something like this. So if we're in this tempo, because now you get into the direction of those more rhythmically advanced riffs, also resembling a little 𝗕𝗍𝗀𝘀 maybe, although this is a topic for another video. And so I just show you some example figures how some riffs could look like while including those kind of double strokes. And from here on, it's really up to you to make this work for whatever rhythms you want to play. Just always keep in mind that you establish your right hand and then you just add this rhythm you want to play with your left hand and give it some time to figure it out, but always stick to this concept, because the more rhythms you learn this way, the easier it will be to also learn new rhythms. If you want to get some more inspiration on potential rhythms you can play, there's a video here where I speak about the band 𝗕𝗍𝗀𝘀 and how they create their music and how you can apply it to your music, that I warmly invite you to watch. And apart from that, I just wish you a lot of inspiration with whatever it is that you create, and really hope to see you soon again at this channel. Bye!